That's a senior officer to a junior officer. We have seen situations, I mean, sorry to break your line of thought there, but we've seen situations where officers or, soldiers return from external peacekeeping operations, and it wasn't until they staged a protest, somewhere in Borno State, that their allowances hadn't been paid, even though they were almost, sacked.
I agree with you.
And, this thing came to the fore.
That is sad moment.
That is a sad moment.
In certain
how
issues.
then do we know that these sad moments aren't continuing within the ranks of our military?
It will continue, though, but what the military owes us is not to expose its rear to the public by making sure that their officers are fine officers and they are gentlemen.
Did you say it will continue?
No, look, they are Nigerians. They are human beings.
Should it continue?
In every country, there are some abnormalities. At some point, the Pentagon questioned the cost of a toilet seat in a boat that was bought for $150. But they set up an inquiry. Recently, in the United States of America, a veteran hospital didn't follow due process. The veterans in America is headed by a general. It's a full cabinet office. Now, there is a protocol of order that was breached, and that resulted in somebody's death. Look at what the U.S. Congress has done. They've called for inquiry, and they say that somebody's head will roll. That took time to be embedded into the system. We just, remember that we're just waking up from military control, and there's democratization. So after a period, that will end. And even this morning, a friend of mine called me from Abuja and asked a simple question. He said, if the military is going on into recruiting, why should people buy scratch card to go online when they are volunteering to die for their country? And I agree with them. I said, this present condition, the military should set up recruitment offices in every state capital. It gives you the opportunity to see whom you are recruiting. Boko Haram can go online and register and be vetted and sponsor people to permit the military, and we'll have a problem in our hands. But when somebody comes and you see their face, you'll be able to know what to ascribe to their application. So there's an evolution. Okay. But coming back to what I was saying earlier, Chamberlain, regarding politicization, Oju Zokalo makes a comment. Jonathan may be the last president for Nigeria. Very uncalled for. Sheikh Abubakar Gumi wakes up. Jonathan should resign. The Sultan, a former brigadier in the military, comes out to say the army must justify 130 billion. This is his constituency. He can talk to them if he suspects something.
I think accountability shouldn't be part of this.
What I'm trying to say,
if people question
somebody like a former DG NSO
budget, then I think they can as well let the people know what has gone down.
No, when the government is serious, I'm going to address this point. Let me conclude this other point. A former DG NSO, under an interview, says that we are fighting a civil war. A civil war. A man who should know better. What he's trying to suggest in this case is that the South should now fight the Kanuris, since it is established that majority of Boko Haram are Kanuris.
But not everybody sees it that way.
That
could be your interpretation.
No, it's not. Are we going to now take up arms and go against the North? Are we going to take up arms and go against Islam? People in Oyo have a beautiful arrangement there where Christians and Muslims live peacefully. People in Kwara have the same experience. So where does it come off saying we are fighting a civil war?
Pardon me.
This is inciting.
Mr. Gbanite, I do not quite see it that way. I mean, I also happen to do a bit of language studies, but, saying that is fighting a civil war, as Chamberlain rightly pointed out, there are many interpretations.
But it's not a civil war.
Because the military has come out to say several times that we're fighting people who are not in uniform. They're not people who are easily identifiable. I mean, they are.
But is it a civil war? Do you understand what the civil war is?
no, I do not want to go into...
No. Do you understand what a civil war is? In the international community...
Just a moment, sir.
Yes.
If you look at it from that perspective, when you're dealing with people who look like civilians, what will we say we're doing? People who are attacking civilians but look very much like them and are not identifiable. I'm not justifying his words. I'm simply saying that that could be another interpretation of his words.
In your language, if we are to call a spade, then we are fighting a war against terrorism. That is what I expect someone like Horsfall to say, that we are fighting a war against terrorism.
But you talked about politicization of the military. All the instances you have given, none points to politicization of the military.
Let me tell you what it meant. You will read in the newspaper where it says that Nigerian military are killing Muslim youths. And this comes
are
from...
you talking about the interview with of the NSO? Is that the former DG?
That interview,
NSO?
yes.
No, I wasn't referring to that one because we have all agreed that it's controversial. It's neither here nor there. But the other three that you've talked about, none of them seems to point at politicizing the military.
We are in a period of crisis. You don't come out and say a president should resign. The same Sheikh Gumi posted in the newspaper, Blueprint newspaper, a newspaper that I respect so much. Again, the same foxfire that Vanguard did, that Nigerian military were executing young men in the north and digging mass grave for them. Now, the Nigerian military are made up of Christians and Muslims. If you are a Muslim in the center of gravity and you see that, psychologically, you will be demoralized. Then if you are a Christian, where people are also saying that you are killing innocent Muslims and they're going to take you to ICC, you will be demoralized psychologically. I was a child soldier. We know the languages that motivates us and the languages that demoralizes us.
Let's assess our fight against insurgency, devoid of all of this, if I could say, politicking, those in the theater of war. How are we approaching this in terms of the strategy? For what you've seen, are we making that kind of progress such that you have the entire country supporting our troops?
We never, for 2 years, Chamberlain, each time I came to your studio, there was a particular language I used to use, and that is ownership. I kept saying there was lack of ownership in this crisis. Some people in the South will say, oh, it's a northern problem, it's a northeast problem, we shouldn't get involved. Some people in the North will say it is federal government problem. But it took the abduction of these children, innocent children I might add, to give a holistic approach to ownership, because the international community have come in and said, we want to assist and collaborate with you. So everybody now is becoming a champion, demonstrating, bring back our children and all that stuff. I'm excited about that. So we are now going to migrate to phase 2. What is the phase 2? The Senate, I commend David Mark for being able to bring the entire membership. And they are now saying to the president, submit what you need for this war. I will wish somebody smart enough there will say, can we block this excess crude money that is shared among states and create a dedicated account for fighting and rebuilding the areas? From that dedicated amount, you can probe it properly because it's not embedded into the normal budget. Then you can set up a war council made up of all the service chiefs, including some civilian strategists, to be able to make sure that the money appropriated is used judiciously. Then you can now begin to interrogate a military man and an insurgent, boot for boot, uniform to uniform, weapon to weapon. At any given time, the government must have superiority. And then you can now look at your strategy and call the military and say, what are your plans in setting up special forces? Because you must reverse the table. You must hunt the hunter. But the greatest problem we're having now, based on intelligence report, is that the entire Sambisa forest have been mined. So Boko Haram have become very, very sophisticated. So you can't even enter Sambisa forest, which is the size of almost Lagos, Ondo, and the Ekiti state put together. So what do you do?
What were we doing to have allowed that mine to have taken place? It takes some time, given the nature of that forest, the landmass.
The seventh division. Yes, no, it doesn't take time to lay mine, really.
For a landmass as huge as that, you can do it just
don't forget
in one
that
fell
these
swoop.
people migrated to Sambisa dating back to 2002. And have had, Sambisa is part of our national game reserve, just like Yankari, just like Gonyo Park in Bauchi area and Jigawa. So there are quite a number of them. So these people had time to study the topography of this part and then got in there.
All right. We'll have to wrap up on this, and then we have to thank you for coming on this morning.
And permit me to just share this with Nigerians, if you don't mind. This is my own creation, and I hope you can show this. This is what I think we ought to be doing. And the first line says, release our girls, Boko Haram. And the second one says, say no to Boko Haram.
All right.
And the third says no to terrorism. And finally, support our military.
Thank you for coming on this program, Max. We'll be back in just a moment. Join us again.